One. Hey, we're welcome back for another special episode of the Rock Fantasy Files. This episode is all about Death, honoring the music. Of course, if people don't know who Death was an American death metal band from the Tampa, Florida area, founded in 1984 by guitarist, vocalist Chuck Schuldiner, one of the most influential bands in heavy metal and a pioneering force in the extreme metal subgenre of death metal. On tonight's episode, I've asked our guests to pick out their 3 favorite albums and to add a story or two on the band. And I would like to give a round of applause to Mazen of Gruesome, who has really been paying homage to this band's legacy and playing with Gruesome and helping put this episode together for me.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks, Robin.
Amazing.
Amazing. You got
So
some
how this works
Metallica?
out tonight. Who wants to go first? Do you want to go first, Robin? I usually have you go first because you're in that square next to me on the left every week, it seems like.
Okay. You go first.
All right. So I'm going to introduce everybody. We got Robin from Gruesome and Dakota. We've got John McEntee, who's a regular in the show from the mighty Incantation. Chase, first time on Rock Fantasy Files from Gatecreeper, another band I really love. We got Munsey Ricci from Skateboard Marketing. Most people know Munsey. Matt Harvey from Gruesome and other projects, which I already moved the sheet around.
Exhumed.
Right? There we go. We got Shaun. We got Shaun Glass, Repentance, guitar player, and we got Terry Butler from Obituary and played in Death and
Several other little things.
And we've got Daniel Gonzalez from
Possessed.
Gruesome and Possessed, and welcome to the show, everybody. So let's
Pretty
go.
metal.
Robin, what do you got to say for the opening statements of tonight's show?
Me, what better death metal band to talk about for this episode than Death? They were basically one of the founding fathers of the scene, and their whole discography is fantastic, and I think we can all have something good to say about, the legacy of the band and, Chuck and other members as well, like Terry there.
We actually have a Death member.
Yeah, we can figure out something nice to say.
I think we can find some.
Great card.
Put me on the spot. I was like, what? Okay.
I put you on the spot. I always have you go first. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Do you want to pick your 3rd favorite
No,
album?
you're gonna pick your 3rd. You're gonna go first.
I'm going first?
You're the host.
All right, I'm going first. All right. So my 3rd favorite album tonight is, let me get the right sheet out here. I wasn't expecting for you to go already, see? My number 3 album is 1988's Leprosy. It's really hard to do this because I love all the albums. I like the newer stuff. I like the early stuff. And this will all change tomorrow too, but Leprosy, of course, Pull the Plug, Open Casket, Born Dead, the song Leprosy. I love all that stuff, and I'm going to keep it short and sweet, and I'm not, everybody else is going to put their 2 cents on all this. So my number 3 is Leprosy tonight.
Okay.
So then we're going to go with John McEntee next.
Okay. Oh, I just pulled out my earphone. Okay, well, for me, Death is like kind of a fundamental for me musically. When I first really got into like the underground tape trading and all that kind of stuff is when I first heard their demos and stuff like that. So I just have a special connection with the early material. It just means so much to me. I don't know. It's like I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I didn't hear that as one of the main fundamentals. There was extreme music at the time, but when I heard the early stuff, it just blew my mind. I think it blew a lot of people's mind, especially in the tape trading days. I didn't want to go totally, elitist on it and just pick like only the demo material or something like that, because
that's what I was waiting for, John.
Just rehearsals.
That's
Only rehearsals.
but I love the demo stuff. That's the stuff that I first heard, It's like a lot of times people's favorite album is the one they heard first and got them really interested in. For me, it was like when an album like Scream Bloody Gore came out, I was waiting for it to come out, and it was just so nice to hear. But oddly enough, I went through all the albums, 'cause actually a lot of the Death albums I haven't listened to in a while, because you know, a lot of the later stuff for me was just a little too progressive for my taste and stuff. But I after reviewing all of them, I really like The Sound of Perseverance a lot. I mean, I don't really like Chuck's vocal performance the best on that. I think it's a little higher end. It's not my cup of tea, but actually music wise, I think it's a really good album. You know, it's far away from the Death that I grew up with, you know, of you know, like I said, the demo days or early stuff, but it is a really good album. To me, out of all, like, say, the progressive stuff, like I kind of consider like Human to you know, Sound of Perseverance like more of a progressive phase or more of a technical phase. To me, I think Sound of Perseverance has the best earthy sound. I mean, I am a huge Richard Christie fan. I think he's a phenomenal drummer. And I just think he brought a flair to it that brought a little bit of that old school vibe in there, but also, you know, the really technical stuff. So, you know, my third favorite, if I'm not adding the demos in there, my third favorite is Sound of Perseverance, I'd say, you know. That's my opinion.
Very good. That's
That's a
why
surprise
we're all
pick,
here.
John. I like that.
All
I'm
right.
just
so-
being honest.
That's good.
Excellent choice. So next in line is Chase from Gatecreeper. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Jeez.
Thanks for
Am I the
joining.
youngest person? Dan, how old are you?
You're definitely the youngest person.
38.
All right. Yeah, I'm 33, so I guess I count as the youngest person. It's also really funny because I remember Terry told me that he joined the band the year that I was born. 87, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to put things in context. But you know, so obviously I'm younger and I was not aware of Death for a long time until, you know, pretty much the whole time that it was active. So all of my listening or research or whatever digging that I've done is pure, you know, revisionist history maybe. And but I definitely, the first three albums are it for me. So I would put Spiritual Healing probably for my third favorite. It's not the first one that I heard, but I remember one of the things that always stick out to me for some reason on that record is that you can hear the lyrics a lot more. I don't know if it's the enunciation or if it's the progression of his, like, kind of the tone of his voice. But there's not a whole lot of death metal records that because I even though it sounds kind of crazy, but even though I'm the singer in a band, I'm not super big on lyrics. Like, I don't really read the lyrics for a band that I like, especially like a death metal band. But on Spiritual Healing, you can like understand all the words that he's saying, and the vocals stick out to me on that for Spiritual Healing. That's always like something that I attach a memory with Spiritual Healing.
That was on purpose, definitely.
Cool.
I mean, I think you can tell that he made a conscious effort to, like, I guess, enunciate better or sing better or cleaner. I mean, I'm not a singer by any means, but you know,
I remember.
I think you can tell the transition between Leprosy and Spiritual Healing. You can
He
hear
was
that.
just as proud of his lyrics as he was his riffs. Definitely. So
Yeah.
he took pride in that. So
I
Makes
remember
sense.
reading all the press for that album, and it was kind of like Chuck was saying, like, I'm tired of people saying death metal is just a bunch of noise and it's not intelligent and this and that. And
yeah.
like, so I'm going to make sure that everybody knows what the fuck I'm saying, because it's not just stupid shit, zombie kind of death.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I
And it
like
worked.
the stupid shit.
I
Yeah,
do
I
too.
love the stupid shit, but yeah.
Right.
No, I understand. A question I had is, maybe Terry could ask since he was there. I noticed on a lot of the albums, Spiritual Healing he just loved using that, like, chorus or flange on the guitar on those higher riffs and stuff like that. And that actually turned me off a little bit, because I actually would like it more if I just heard the guitar doing that. But he really seemed to like that. I thought it was kind of interesting, an interesting additive that he got it. I know it was a very Nasty Savage kind of vibe to it, but to me it seemed a little too much, in my personal opinion. and I'm an elitist asshole, so you know.
I just think it's a sound I think maybe on Spiritual, we
Yeah, he
did a little of that, and he loved it. So, yeah.
just wrong with it.
Anyhow, Shaun, you got your mute on.
Sorry. I
Oh, yeah.
remember around, I think it was Leprosy when Chuck first got that GK with the built-in chorus. Remember that?
Yeah.
And he loved the way the chorus was on. Like, I would be at his house and he'd always be riffing out with the chorus. I'm like, you got the chorus on? He's like, dude, I know, it sounds so rad.
Yeah. Well, we were all
Remember,
big fans of Sabotage and Nasty Savage. We grew up on that. So
I think it was a Morrisound thing too.
carrying the torch.
Yeah.
I remember Patrick
Love
from
that
Pestilence was even saying you put chorus on the Consuming Impulse guitar tone. I wonder if that was because of Chuck.
Absolutely, it
I would,
was.
I would
Don't
say
Don't get me started on that.
very Chuck.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Munsey, you're up next. Munsey from Skateboard Marketing. Welcome to the show.
Right, thanks for having me, dude. I'm gonna say my third favorite Death album is probably The Sound of Perseverance. I mean, in 1987, I was still in college radio, and my first record company gig was Combat Records in Hollis, Queens. And ironically, Pokey, the drummer from Leeway, was my supervisor. So it was actually it was kind of pretty trippy, and it was a very cool scene and a cool vibe. And that's when Scream Bloody Gore had come out, and that's where I first heard about Death, and that's where I listened to the first album. And you know, Leprosy, then Spiritual Healing came out, and Individual Thought and Symbolic, and I mean, all those records were great. But I'm going to say The Sound of Perseverance, which is the last one, which I think Nuclear Blast put that record out, if I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
And because he was on Combat forever, and then he had one record on Roadrunner, I think it was, and then the last was Nuclear Blast. And dude, he had come to the office one day, and he was walking around the warehouse with Alan Becker, who was, you know, kind of like the head honcho, and that's where I had met him, and that was 1987, and they had first signed the deal, and that's like when Scream Bloody Gore was coming out, you know. So nobody really knew who Death was except the Extreme Underground, which was actually kind of cool. I mean, I had heard of them, but really didn't know anything about them until that point. And and I'm just going to say, you know, listening to The Sound of Perseverance, hearing how the band had progressed and developed, and it was a very different lineup than the original lineup. And I just thought it was a great album, and it's probably my third favorite. Even though as great of a record it is, it's my third favorite record.
Okay. Thanks. All right. Next up on the line is Matt Harvey. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hey, thanks for having me. I think it's kind of weird because for me, the first three are all like really crucial. So those would probably be all my picks. And I think if I really was being honest, I would say my third favorite is Leprosy, which was the second album that I heard. I'd heard Scream Bloody Gore, and I kind of didn't know what to make of it because I was 12, and it was just so extreme. This is like 1988. I turned 13 in October of 88, and Scream Bloody Gore was just sort of confusing. It sounded like a whirlwind of noise to me. And a friend of mine played hockey with this other kid named Mark Smith, and he had a Leprosy tape. And so he played it for us, and I was like, oh, I can hear what's going on a little bit more. And I think he dubbed it for me or whatever, as one did back then, you know, because I only got like $10 a week allowance to go to the record store and buy one tape a week. And so I just listened to it relentlessly. And then I went back to Scream Bloody Gore, and I was like, oh, I can actually hear the riffs now that I've sort of gotten an ear for this kind of tonality. And, you know, Leprosy was really impressive because it was more extreme than like Slayer or Creator, the other bands that I'd heard at the time. But it was also more articulate. You know, the stuff that Chuck was doing with his leads was already way ahead of like what Millet from Creator was doing, or either of the guys in Slayer. There was, you could hear like a budding sort of melodic sensibility to it, which was completely new. I'd heard, I think the heaviest records I had were like Pleasure to Kill, Under the Black Mark by Bathory, maybe, and like Celtic Frost. And so to hear that kind of articulate guitar playing in music that was so extreme was really, I mean, it was really kind of mind blowing, and it seemed so obvious, 30 whatever years later. But I'd never heard anything like that. And I don't think really the underground had yet at that time either. And even like the J card was really impressive. Like usually you just got like a tape with just a little box with a cover. It would say like creator in plain type underneath. And the Leprosy one had the full fold out with a colored photo. And it was like, you could see that like, whoa, these guys have endorsements and stuff. Like, holy shit. It seemed so professional and like really impressive for something that was so extreme. And, I just played it relentlessly, and I was already starting to play guitar. And so that was sort of the record that I went to try and learn the riffs because I could hear them a little bit better. And that was a really just a huge deal for me. And, then I saw the Ultimate Revenge 2 VHS tape, somebody had it. And to just see that live, to see especially the vocals, it's not like in 8th grade I knew anybody that was doing death metal vocals. So I'd never seen someone make that voice before. And it was just like, holy shit, this is insane. It was a huge impression on me.
I think we didn't even use tuners at that point.
I thought you guys were so pro.
No, dude, we didn't. Yeah, I mean, what you see us live, we might be tuned to C one night, C sharp the next night, whatever.
Awesome.
It wasn't until spiritually that we're like, hey, we should get some tuners so we can do the, tune properly every night.
That makes me feel better because we didn't use tuners until after the second Exhumed record either. So
There you go.
What's a click track?
Click, what?
Cool. Thanks. Shaun, I guess you're up next. I understand you were a good friend of Chuck's and wanted to be on the show. So welcome to the show. I'm glad you joined us tonight.
Thanks. Yeah, I knew Chuck, not to go too long without saying my favorite third album, but like I knew Chuck from when tape trading. I was in a band in the underground called Terminal Death around 1985. I started a band with a bunch of friends that we all met at gigs, going to local metal shows, E-Trope and stuff in Chicago. And I just started tape trading with people, and Borivor that runs Blabbermouth had a fanzine then. And I think Violent Noise made a spin out. I can't remember, but he turned Chuck onto my demo and he made a compilation of a bunch of, underground death metal demos, and Chuck got my demo. And then we started just, going back and forth. He sent me some Mantis demos, and then all of a sudden he's like, hey dude, I'm changing the name of the band, yada, yada. Then he sent me some live stuff, and I got I think Death Live at Ruby's cassette live, and had early demos, and I was just totally into it. I was like, wow, this stuff is mind blowing. Like, this is next level. Like, this is even heavier than Slayer. Oh my God, and it just blew me away. And I was like, and then as we became friends, I guess I got to hear stuff, as it was being born, more or less, pretty much up until when Terry and Bill and I can't remember who played guitar that week, left the band. It was after the Spiritual Healing lineup basically disbanded. We stayed in touch, but it was cool for me to constantly hear the growth and development of what Chuck was into. And we grew up, we had a lot of similarities. We're Jewish. We both grew up on Kiss. We both were totally into Corner and Watchtower and Merciful Fate and early Motley Crue. So me and him had a really cool bond, similar in age. He was a year, I think, older than I am. And we just had such a really good bond because we had so much similarities in music. But it was so cool for me to see how fast people started just getting excited, even before Scream Bloody Gore came out. When the Mutilation demo came out, I think that really was people really started taking death serious. And when I first heard the 3-song Mutilation demo that eventually got him signed to Combat, pre-Scream Bloody Gore, I knew he was on something special.
Is Land of No Return on that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great demo.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Chris Reifert just makes the difference.
Chris is great on that.
Yeah. When Chuck sent me that demo, I was just blown away. I'm like, dude, this is the next level. When I heard Mutilation, Mutilation just blew me away. The song Mutilation, And then it was awesome to see, and just watching Death grow and watching Chuck evolve as a musician. He always had his demons. We all know, he definitely, he had issues with trust. I get it. I've been there. I understand his frustration as an artist of trusting people. And he was always had his guard up. He went through many, many lineups because of people being jealous of him or how his personality was, or his work ethic, or whatever it may be. But, at the end, Chuck truly was a great, great death metal icon.
What's your third favorite album?
And now my third favorite album, I'm going to go with Spiritual Healing, because I think that album was like a huge growth from the first two, huge growth. And like everyone was talking earlier about the vocals, and I know Chuck personally, I remember him going, dude, I didn't want to sound like all those guys that just rip off, and sound like they're going to barf in a can. I knew what he was going for. He wanted to be pronounced. And that's what he really was going for. And I think that one of the great things was Bill was driving such powerful grooves. Like, it was awesome. He didn't overplay. He didn't step out of the box too much. He complimented the songs. And the other great thing about Spiritual Healing, I thought, aside from one of Scott Burns' best mixes, hands down, I thought, at the time. But I thought that the yin and yang of James Murphy and Chuck Schuldiner solos really set that album apart, because you could tell, like, James had that more classical Yngwie shreddy type Marty Friedman style, and then Chuck had his own style, with the whole Arabic and legato feel. But I think that really helped the balance of the album, because they were both such great lead players. But when they were going back and forth on certain songs, I can't remember right now, there's a couple songs that have great trade-off solos.
Depends on personalities.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. But I think that I really think that was something that kind of got lost and missed. Even, we can talk about other records, but I really did like that also on Leprosy. I like Rick Roz's solos with Chuck. I think the combination of the Slayer leads and Chuck's melodic leads was awesome. Like, you get a little bit of Slayer, you get a little bit of Merciful Fate.
It was great. Yeah.
Yeah. And, Rick is whatever, but I liked his leads on Leprosy, But anyway, my third favorite album is Spiritual Healing.
Thank you, Shaun. That was awesome. So, Terry Butler,
Yeah.
what's your opening statements for this show tonight?
Well, my third favorite is Screamer to Gore. I met Chuck at a Nasty Savage show here in Tampa at a place called Ruby's. I think it was '84. He had a Ziploc bag full of Mantis demos, and I bought one from him, and we talked a little bit, talked about music, and I took it home that night, and it crushed me. It was so heavy and raw, it was like Venom times 10, and it was recorded on a little boom box, and I could feel the energy and the rawness of it, and when he changed the name to Death, it's obviously still followed him and everything, listened to all the demos, and it's a long story, but luckily, we were able to basically join Death from Massacre, and it was such an amazing time. To me, there's 3 levels of Death. You got the demos and Scream, you got Leprosy and Spiritual, and after that, you got what I call like the glam era of Death. I don't necessarily mean glam musically, but all the promo pictures had shirts unbuttoned and hair flowing and all this and that. And I like to think that I was part of the blue collar version of Death, But we kind of went out there on the road. We toured in cars and vans, and didn't get any sleep, and had Thanksgiving dinner out of a chunky soup can. Basically putting the band on the map, so to speak. But Scream is part of my third favorite, and it was. I got along great with Chuck. Obviously, he was a bit of a diva, but all those things is what made him great musically, and it was a great time, and it's a shame that he's gone.
I agree with Terry about the 3 eras of Death too.
Yeah.
And all of them were very forward thinking. I mean,
Yeah.
you might listen to the early demos, the Mantis and that early stuff, and think, oh, this sounds like crap, or whatever. But at that time, it was just like, holy hell! Like it was just like level went up high, and it was the same thing, when Leprosy and Spiritual Healing came out, it's went up to another level too. So just and then he did the technical stuff. He went to a whole new level with that,
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I just lost my headphones. I can't hear.
On the
Get too
liner
excited,
notes,
talking about metal.
That's awesome. On the liner notes of the Spiritual Healing album when it was reissued, I don't know if the original one's out of or not, but some cool pictures of the guys wearing my Rock Fantasy shirts and Terry's, and one with probably hard to make out on the little screen here, but
that's awesome.
it was some good times back in the day, and it was just awesome. It was awesome when someone bought the album and opened it up when it came out a year or two ago and said, "Hey, you realize how many people got Rock Fantasy shirts on in the liner notes," and it made my day for sure.
Yeah, that's a much smaller version of me on that album jacket, but
actually, the one picture of you on there is the one I dressed up like you.
Yes,
that's the best.
Yeah,
just saw it.
I made sure I neared my legs that day on purpose. So.
tiny
I think if there was pictures for me from that time period, I'd be quite skinnier too. I think I fit in a medium shirt then. Anyhow, awesome. Daniel, welcome to the show. And what's your opening statement tonight? Glad to have you on. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. My third favorite Death album, I mean, if I have to list them, probably not being fair here, but probably a tie between Scream, Bloody Gore and Spiritual Healing. Well, probably Spiritual Healing. I mean, like I mentioned before, and some of you guys have said that that album is a little jump from Leprosy, Scream, Bloody Gore, the demos. Chuck made a conscious effort to change a lot of things, not only his vocals, but the tempo of the songs. They're more structured, dare I say, maybe more melodic and more musical. And I'm assuming that James Murphy maybe had some influence on that side of things. But overall, I mean, every song in that album is perfect. It's really a true classic. I mean, Scream, Bloody Gore is also amazing record for different reasons. Obviously, it's more raw, it's faster. The lyrical content are like polar opposites. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I have too much to add to the Spiritual Healing, since people have been talking about it already.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, that's definitely will be my third pick.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And now we're back to you. Amazing.
Me?
Yeah, you didn't do your third pick yet.
Well, yeah, I didn't do my third pick because I got too
I threw you into the fire there. Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. I want to say that I pretty much mine's going to be Spiritual Healing for my third pick as well. Wow. And I agree pretty much.
Me?
Huh?
The popular one.
Popular album.
Well, I'm going to pick that one, and I'm going to agree with pretty much everything that everybody said, especially John at the beginning. I feel pretty much what he said about everything. I'm kind of on the same path. And then going, because we talked about Spiritual Healing, like Dan said, I'm just going to pick my second pick now and go to that. Okay. My second pick is Leprosy. To me, that was like a band that, then I can't say it without giving away my first, but for a sophomore record from a band, I think it blew away their debut album. And I love that record. And like being in Gruesome, you know, the guys, and I feel bad that Gus isn't here because he's probably going to be sad. But
No,
you
he
know,
would
they're
talk
the
way too
driving
much.
force and everything with everything Gruesome, like musically and where the direction's going. And they definitely know how I feel about certain things. And like later Death, it got too techie for me, I guess, maybe later on after Spiritual. Like I like Human and like I love Human, but once it started, like everybody's saying Sounds of Perseverance, and that was almost way, you know,
Too far.
way over my wheelhouse of like, you
Well,
know.
Well, that was
Yeah.
supposed to be a Control Denied album, but Nuclear Blast wanted to put it out as Death.
Well,
So
you know, I mean,
I don't
Yes.
count it as a Death
you
album.
guys can
personally.
vouch for me when I'm like, oh, can we just revisit this record again? And like, right? Don't I say that? Like, it's just like, can we just go back? But you know, they're the creative drive, and I'm gonna say Spiritual number 3, Leprosy number 2 as probably one of the better sophomore records of a band out there. It was, I think overall it's the Death record, like hands down, but it's not my number 1 pick.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I guess we're back to me for my number 2. My number 2, I'm copying with the Spiritual Healing album. Barry Butler, James Murphy, Bill Andrews, of course, on the album. The lead track, Living Monstrosity, Altering the Future, the title track, of course. I mean, that's a solid album. I wore this thing out when it came out in the store when we got that thing. And I mean, it's still a song that I can still get in my head over the years without even listening to it for a long time. So that's my number 2, Spiritual Healing. And we're back to John McEntee.
Hey, okay. Yeah, my number 2 is also Leprosy. It's just, yeah, it was just a super kick-ass album. I mean, yeah, like Robin was saying, Scream Bloody Gore was a groundbreaking album, you know, but then to hear Leprosy come out and, you know, kick ass, yeah, it was a tad bit different than, you know, Scream Bloody Gore. But I mean, after a while, you kind of notice each album is a tad bit kind of a progression into a different direction. But I mean, at that time, I was just like, you know, dying to hear a new Death album, you know. So once I heard it, it was just like, holy fuck, you know. You're just like, we were, you know, all of us, you know, us the Immolation guys, you know, all my buddies in Revenant and stuff, we were all just like, it was just a, you know, we were so psyched, the new album, get to see a new tour, you know. I remember seeing them at Streets, seeing them at
Yeah, I was at Streets.
Love
Yeah.
Streets. Streets was awesome.
Sundance. I seen them, I can't remember, I must have seen them like at least 4 times on that tour. And I was so pissed because when Immolation guys got to see them in Philly, where they filmed the you know, that what was it, the Ultimate Revenge 2? Yeah, I think it was that.
Trocadero.
Yeah, it was Trocadero. It was, I didn't know about the freaking show, you know. I was so freaking pissed, you know, because I mean, that was just a great you know, that album just has lots of great memories of me as a growing musician and just like really focusing on what I want to do. And, you know, like I mentioned, that Death stuff had a profound impact on me, you know, along with other underground bands at the time, but that was really one of the top ones. And yeah, it was just, you know, another step forward. It was definitely more refined than Scream Bloody Gore. And I think the performance of everyone on the album was really great. I mean, I thought Bill Andrews' drum work was great on that album. It's just like in the pocket and what needs to be there, you know. It wasn't over flashy like some of the other stuff later on, and I like that. I mean, it's great to have a flashy drummer, but it's nice to just have somebody just play the right parts, and you definitely can tell too, for me, of that Nasty Savage influence on that album. You definitely hear, it reminds me of the first, you know, 2 Nasty Savage albums with those higher riff things going on and stuff, and just those basic patterns. But I love it. For me, you know, Leprosy is, yeah, it's one of the best just death metal albums probably
Yeah.
in metal history, especially at the time. I mean, I understand people look at it from different points of views because, you have people that are looking back on it and might get a different opinion of it. But if you were looking, from before to it, it was just like, bam. It was, like there's certain albums that just come out and it's like, just blows your mind, and Death to me really did that a good 1-2 punch on their first 2 albums. I mean, what was it? The demo, was it the Mutilation demo? I heard that, and I mean, that's amazing demo. That would easily be my number 3 if I was adding demos in there. But to hear that to Scream Bloody Gore, then to hear Scream Bloody Gore to Leprosy, to me, that was just like, it just floored me. I was just like, kill me now. I just remember headbanging like crazy at the shows.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and
Cool.
yeah, I just have great memories of that.
That Streets gig, I was at that show, I remember, and I think Primeval warmed up, didn't they?
Oh yeah, Primeval. Oh, they were a great band too. They're one of my favorites.
I think
love that
it
band.
was Primeval, and was it the all-girl band Mean Streak on that bill too? I mean, if
I have
everybody
no
remembers,
idea.
Man, I can't remember.
if everybody remembers Mean
You
Streak.
remember everything, Terry. How do you not remember?
I don't know. I was selling T-shirts. I probably saw, but I don't remember.
I probably bought a T-shirt from you instead of Robin for a
I
change.
guarantee you.
He has,
Yeah.
he has filled in for me a few times. I have to.
Yes.
that
Yes,
that,
I
the
have.
I
band
have to fill in covered for me,
And
that
on
band-
bass and Gruesome.
and maybe some bass and Gruesome.
that band Primeval, though, to me, on a side note, is one of the best thrash bands ever, and I
Yeah.
think they never got the due that they deserve, because kind of death metal took over around the time. But they were really, I mean, they were idols to me when I was playing, especially in Revenant and stuff. We were just like, man, one day I want to be as good as Primeval,
It's a shame they didn't. It's a shame they didn't get signed.
No,
Right.
if they would have got signed just a little bit earlier, maybe
Yeah.
around 87 or something, then they could have made a really good impact. Because to me,
Yeah.
they were up there with any of the great thrash bands. I think
agree.
it's
I agree.
criminal that they didn't do at least an album or 2 on a big label.
True, I agree.
I agree with you.
They're
Yeah.
hometown guys from my town, also from
Mhm.
Middletown.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. I guess Chase, we're back to you. Welcome back.
Cool. My second favorite would probably be Scream Bloody Gore. It's the first Death album that I heard. I think it was someone made like a mix for me or something, and it had Zombie Ritual on it, and I liked it. It was even, this is again in context, it's way later after the record came out, and music as a whole was already like pushed to the extreme. So I don't have the same experience as hearing that record when it first came out, and it was the most extreme thing that on the planet. But even then I liked it, but I had to dig further into the Death discography I think that originally, after I heard some songs from Scream Bloody Gore, I went and checked out, some of the other Death records. And I think that the first records that I really liked from Death was the later ones. And I think that's because it had a little bit more of like a modern production that I was used to at the time. But now, after listening to it, for years now, Scream Bloody Gore is my second favorite. I put it there. And
Awesome.
I mean, like I said, it's a little bit of a different context when you're listening to it, in the 2000s, for the first time than it is from when it came out. But I mean, it's as a lot of you had said, it's a pretty I can still appreciate and respect the groundbreaking and influence that it had on metal at the time, even though I was maybe not even born yet.
That's awesome.
Cool. Very good. Thanks, Chase. Back
Sorry,
to
real
you.
quick, Gene's trying to sign in, so he might be
cool.
popping in, just so you know, he just texted. So.
Oh, great.
Just in case there's a disruption before, like, while Munsey's talking, I just wanted to.
All right, no problem.
We've been actually sitting here kind of silent. It's pretty cool.
Munsey, you're never silent.
I'm a promo guy, radio promo. We never shut up.
So cool, Rumsey. What's happening? What's your number 2 today?
Oh, God. I'm going to say probably my number 2 record would be Leprosy. And, Leprosy was actually, the chops on this record were a little bit better than the first album, I think. And Forgotten Past or Left to Die are probably my 2 favorite songs on the record.
Forgotten.
And it just by kind of listening to this album, you could tell that it's like it very differs from the first album somewhat, because you could tell that Chuck was progressing. And when you notice one thing about an artist's career, an artist always progresses. They always build from where they left off. And I think, by getting into this, it kind of really brought out, the direction he was going. And, I've listened to it a few times. I actually haven't listened to it in a while. And when you invited me onto the podcast, I actually had to pull it out and listen to it again. Because it's actually been a while since I actually sat down and streamed the record. So I pulled a disc out of my collection and popped it in and listened to it in the office. And it was kind of refreshing, because it was that long since I've actually sat down and heard it. And I would say, it was either a toss-up. That's kind of my second favorite, or maybe Individual Thought Patterns. I don't know, but I'm going to go with Leprosy.
Cool.
Looks
Sounds
like you
great.
popped in.
So we got a new person that hopped onto the metal bunch tonight. We got Mr. Gene Hoglan. Welcome, brother.
Hey, Gene.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Thanks for
Daddy-o.
joining.
Daddy-o.
What's up, Daddy-o?
Okay. Hey, what's going on, Robin? How are you?
We're just kind of going around in a circle, and we'll catch up with you in a second. And we're just kind of doing our favorite 3 Death albums and talking a little bit about some memories and of the band and everything else. And so, welcome.
Very cool. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, man.
Mr. Matt Harvey, you're up next.
Do you want to give Gene a chance since he just got here?
You want to go? Yeah, you want to hop in right now, Gene? And
That's you guys' call, man. It's up to you guys, man.
up to Matt. Up to Matt.
Just be ready to do your third and second.
I cede the floor to Gene because he hasn't got a chance to talk.
All right,
yet,
all right.
so.
So, Gene, you want to start with your number 3 or your statements or whatever you want to talk about?
I heard you mention something about 3 favorite records. Well, shoot, man, I'd have to say Human is my favorite Death album. Absolutely, man. The mighty drumming of Mr. Shaun Reinert. Hell yeah, man. Boy, he set the bar so high for us all. Something very wonderful to be able to emulate and fall into, kind of thing. So, we love us some Human and some sounds of Perseverance and all that. I'm quite partial to the Individual and Symbolic and all that stuff. You cannot go wrong with Leprosy. Myself, for some of the older stuff, Scream Bloody Gore, like I can flat out tell you my least favorite Death record was Spiritual Healing. That was my absolute. I dig all Death albums. That you can't have everyone as your favorite, but that would be my 8th, 7th kind of thing. So hey.
I think that was everybody's third favorite.
It's interesting though.
But that's interesting perspective from you, because it's
yeah, you're a member of Death.
Hey, what's going on, Shaun? How are you, brother?
Okay, man. We'll catch back up with you, Gene, in a couple of minutes. I have a couple questions for you too. But Matt, I guess it's time for your number 2 then.
I guess I'm going to give the rebuttal to Gene now because my second favorite is Spiritual Healing.
It's awesome.
It's more personal, I think, even than anything, as much as I love the songs, because I think I was 14. Yeah, I was 14 when that record came out. And I've been playing guitar for 2.5 years. And because every Death record, as we've all been saying, you see Chuck's progression. And of course, when you first start playing guitar, you suck for 6 months horribly. And then you start getting better pretty fast. And so I always I was learning all these death riffs, and I was so excited to go to the record store the week that Spiritual Healing came out. I was like, reading like power metal or thrash metal or whatever. I was clipping all the ads and sticking them up on my bedroom wall. And I got that, the Friday I got my allowance. I think I told my dad, like, I'll mow the lawn later. Like, you got to give me my $10 now because I'm going to listen to this tape on my Walkman, like when I get back to do my chores. And it just set the bar that much higher, I guess, like in terms of the guitar work. And it was really, really decipherable, like everybody said. And, I think James Murphy also deserves a lot of credit. That was sort of his breakout album, and he kind of became like the first death metal guitar hero, because Chuck was a front man, but James was just like a shredder. And to hear, because already what Chuck was doing with his leads was pretty advanced for the genre. And then James Murphy came in and was like, holy fucking shit. I couldn't believe that there was a guy this good playing, death metal. And that was also the first time I got to see Death. I went to the tour with Death and Devastation in March, and my dad drove me and my buddy there, and he was like, I'm picking you up at midnight, and if you're not outside at midnight, I'm going to fucking leave you in Oakland. And it was not in a good neighborhood. The Omni, if anybody's ever been there, it's not in a good neighborhood. And the show ran.
Back then too.
What's that?
It was that bad back then too.
Oh, it was probably worse.
Oh my god.
And the show ran really late, and I think I saw like 1.5 songs of Death, and I was so disappointed. But I, have a little digital watch, and I was like, "Oh, it's 12:15. My dad's gonna fucking kill me." And I come out, he's just sitting in the car smoking a cigarette, tapping his fingers, like, "God fucking damn it! I told you midnight." And he like didn't talk to me the whole ride home, but it was worth it. I met Chuck at that show, and I got his autograph on the back of a Sadist Swallowed in Black Flyer. Still have it somewhere. No, it was the next tour with Carcass and Pestilence that I met. Anyway, so that was.
I love that tour.
Yeah.
Robin, were you on that tour?
I was no, I wasn't. I was at shows. I wasn't at that tour.
I can't think back of a tour Robin's not on. So. I know some of us are a little older than Chase, but I may have seen Robin selling merch that night, and it wasn't her. So
you might have seen me name Mozart concert.
Wait,
Shaun, are you trying to say we're old, dude?
What?
Are you trying to say we're old, dude?
I'm old.
Well, I know everyone here definitely is someone in my age group. So.
Like it's like weird to cover people that I don't want them to answer. Like I'm covering Gene right now because I lie about my age all the time, and he calls me out. So on my screen.
Not many girls listen to Van Halen, so you're old.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm probably the oldest one in the room tonight.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Chase, you're the youngest for sure. I'll bet on it.
Yeah, I am.
All right, we're getting off track again.
Yeah. I guess
we need like a gavel, like a timer.
Yeah, that's what we got for next week. A buzzer.
Yeah.
You get a taser.
A taser. There you go. I don't know if that'll work on Zoom, but Shaun, I guess you're up next. I think we lost Terry.
Terry dropped out. He might have had a child issue.
Oh, okay. All of a sudden we went from back to the Brady Bunch screen here.
The Hollywood Squares.
It's pretty funny for my third album that Gene joined now. I would say because me and Chuck had a falling out after Spiritual Healing when that lineup imploded. And it was weird because I had such a personal connection with Chuck for so many years, and I was butt sore because me and him had a falling out over the situation that fell apart with that lineup. And I was like, there's always a part of me that was like, I love the guy, but I was so mad over what happened with the European tour that he flaked on. And it was hard for me to still love Death in some ways. But I liked Human at first, and I thought it was cool. But when I heard Symbolic, I had the advanced cassette. I had a gray little insert card for the artwork. And I remember putting on, the cassette, and just my jaw dropped. I was like, holy fuck, this is so good. And I couldn't deny it. I was just like, there's no denying this is a great Death album. I was like, God damn, Chuck did it, man. Like, this is so badass. Like, in production wise, I still feel that Symbolic is easily the best sounding Death album. I think Jim Morris' mix was perfect. I think he nailed it, from the drums to the guitar tone, the bass, the vocals, everything about the album. The solos were amazing. I think that everything about Symbolic was, in a way, like the next chapter of Death, but it was perfect. Like, I couldn't deny how strong melodically and brutal the album was. And I was proud of Chuck. I even went to the show in Chicago. We didn't even talk. I remember, I think I talked to Gene, and the Sacrifice guys obviously got me in the show. And it was cool, but I always felt like he did it. Like, you know, he proved to everyone, like, look, motherfuckers, I am that man. And he did it. And Symbolic, I thought, was such a improvement and mature growth, but yet it still sounded like Death. Crystal Mountain, so many great songs on that album, you know. And obviously the riff in Symbolic is like, that is one of Chuck's biggest riffs, you know. The opening riff to that album it's awesome. I worship that riff, you know. So hands off to Eugene Hoglan for playing on my second favorite Death album, Symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Shaun, very cool, brother.
Cool. Dan, I guess you're up next, since Terry pumped out a room on us.
Sure. My second favorite would be, I would have to say, Leprosy. I mean, I'm younger too, so I didn't really get to experience, you know, the shock when those albums came out. But that album, you know, after listening all of them and comparing them, obviously has like such like raw like brutality, but not in the same way that Scream Bloody Gore did. It was like more like a controlled brutality. You know, faster tempos, you know, like better like composition. The songwriting was tighter. I don't know, it has such a vibe, like such a feel that, you know, catchy songs but still super brutal, relentless solos, you know, like Shaun was talking about Rick's, you know, Slayer solos, and they match so well with Chuck style soloing. The drumming should just never stop. So, you know, that album just like plows through you, you know. It's fucking brutal. That would be my second pick for sure.
Thanks, Daniel. That's awesome. All right, I guess we're back to Robin. Or
no, we gotta have Gene again, because
Gene again before you. All right, Gene, you're back again. Thanks. Thanks for joining. I love the new album you guys put out with Testament too. I thought it was in my top 3 albums. I think top 5 out, like top 3 albums of the year that I listened to.
Wow.
Yeah, you definitely, it was in your top 3 when we did the episode.
I think it was 3rd, yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. Well, appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
And
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Oh, righty with that. There you go. All righty, cool, man. Well, thank you very much, brother.
So
you don't want to pick another record, or you?
I picked 7 of them.
we already did it.
You want to pick yeah, there's pretty much.
Okay,
he kind of picked them in order early, I think, maybe. What were a couple of your favorite songs to play in Death?
Yeah, there you go. What's your favorite? What's your favorite song?
So, flat out, Flattening of Emotions. Darn tootin', man. That's my favorite Death song. My favorite Death song to play. Hell yeah, man. God, I love that with Shaun's drumming on that entire record. It's just so ferocious and so tasty. And like I said, you know, he just set the bar so high for most metal drummers. You know, it's like, wow, here's a brand new avenue that we all get to do. You know, we're all interested in, you know, Watchtower and UK and King Crimson and, you know, Rush and everything.
Corner.
And that kind of stuff. And so to be able to and that was one thing that I always, that Chuck was always very accommodating and very cordial with was, I could come up with some wackadoodle drum beat, with Shaun as the influence, as the precursor, and Chuck would be like, dude, I could play my riffs over your beat, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great, man. I dig what you're doing. So nothing I ever did got too out of control for Chuck, and that was always cool. And the only time that I remember on Individual Thought Patterns, there was one beat that Scott Burns had said, Gene, I'm not feeling that beat. Can you maybe just write something on the fly right here? Because I'm not feeling that. I remember that was in, I think it's a song called Jealousy. Just the opening beat. I had some other beat, and he's like, dude, come up with something right now. And then there was something on Symbolic where Jim Morris was like, I'm not feeling that beat, which I thought was kind of funny because it was a beat I completely stole from Shaun from Secret Face. And it was like full on of like, direct Shaun beat. And Jim was like, not quite feeling that one. But Chuck was always, super accommodating, and he never had a problem with anything we were writing. So that was that, working with Chuck was always pretty easy in that regard. Absolutely. So
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Thanks. I guess it's my turn again, Robin, or is it your turn now? I've lost track.
I think it's
My turn. All right. So it's my closing statements for tonight, and my number one. What's that?
Okay, so you go, then I go.
Yeah, we'll do it that way then. So this is what I always in Rock Fantasy Files when we do the last round around. I call it the closing statement. So anything you want to add about the band and your favorite album. My favorite album is Symbolic. That album, I remember going through a tough time in '95, and I don't really want to go into the details, but I remember it was a really hot summer. I had my Rock Fantasy. I had an old Dodge van with no air conditioning. It looked like the Sanford and Son truck, sort of, but it was kind of famous around my area for the Rock Fantasy. And I just had this probably on cassette in the van, and I wore this thing out. I just loved it, the Zero Tolerance, Empty Words. I loved the whole album. And Crystal Mountain, of course. And
very cool.
My number one album. And I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And awesome to get all you guys in the same room during this crazy, awful time pandemic where we got nothing to do. We can't go to shows, and at least we can get together once a week on my show and talk some music. So if you like what you see tonight, please hit subscribe and comment your favorite Death songs. And we're going to go around the bend again and have a closing statement for everybody and get their number one albums and whatever else we can add to the show. So thanks, guys. Robin, amazing Robin. We have to thank you. We're going to give her a round of applause for getting all these.
Robin, you fucking rule, dude.
So, okay. First, I got to ask Shaun, that the Sacrifice show you saw, was that like with Butler as well, or am I?
No, it was Sacrifice and Gorefest.
Oh, okay.
What album was that for?
That would have been Individuals,
Thought Patterns, right? Yeah.
On 95
at the Oak Theater.
Or?
It was at the Oak Theater in Chicago, the gig. I remember that.
Okay, yeah. That would have been, if that was 95, that would have been Nevermore, I know. And then I'm just kind of forgetting, but I think 93, Sacrifice had Soldier of Misfortune. That was their.
And Gus wasn't drumming. Remember that? Right. Yeah. Or no. It wasn't Soldier. It was the blue weird looking Apocalypse Inside.
I was thinking of the Bolt Thrower Sacrifice Believer tour in '92.
Oh, that's what it was. It was with Believer. Thank you, Matt.
The
okay.
Master
I was
tour.
like all confused. Okay.
Believer. Wow, I haven't heard that.
Yeah,
name.
I saw that tour, but that was not with Death.
Okay,
right?
that's where I was confused. And then I was gonna say I feel like I saw Death with Dark Angel.
I saw that. Was
that like 89?
No. That may have been Spiritual.
Leprosy.
No, it was 89 when I swear it was 89.
That
was Leprosy 89 tour.
Robin, I think you told me one time that you saw us in Miami, right?
That show, I want to say, was at the Button South.
Button South. Oh, damn.
Wow.
Okay, well, yeah, but I remember we played, we did Miami, and that wasn't
at the Cameo Theater.
At the Cameo.
I went to the Cameo with Chuck for King Diamond.
Yeah. But I'm just trying to think. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. But you said the Sacrifice tour, and then I started thinking about.
Yeah. So it was individual thought patterns that I saw with Sacrifice and Gorefest in Chicago.
There you
Okay.
go.
All right.
Correct.
So,
But Dean was drumming.
Darn tootin'.
darn tootin'. So for my number one pick, as like if it wasn't obvious from what I said before, is going to be Scream Bloody Gore. That's my number one pick, only because it was
The first.
the first and raw and heavy and like whoa and everything. Like even to this day, if you put on Scream Bloody Gore, I want to punch people. Like as soon as it comes on, like Chuck's like the torture. It's just tortured and just heavy, and you just want to. Yeah, you're like and you just want to fight people. But my closing statement is, I want to say I have loved every lineup and every person in Death, like, musicianship wise and even personally wise. Gene, I love you, that. And with that, we lost so many members, of Death besides Chuck. And I just want to, shout out to everybody that has been in Death and that we lost, because there's been a lot of loss in that band.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So I just want to say that, and that's my closing statement. And I love Death, and I want to punch people during Scream Bloody Gore and other albums, and that's it. And thank you.
yeah, I wanted to mention that too, that we lost Shaun just last fall in 2020, right?
It's coming up on a year.
Wow.
right
Is it
now.
already? I
Yeah.
thought it was the fall. I wasn't sure. I
No,
remember
it's coming up on. I believe it's coming up on a year.
it was some kind of in that
Over it now.
horrible 2020.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, like the amount of loss, and I mean, just not just people leaving the band, but there's been a lot of
Yeah.
gone.
Yes, that Scott from Sound of Perseverance passed away a
Um,
couple of years ago too.
That's my. Thank you to everybody in Death ever.
You go.
Thank you, Robin, for being on the show tonight again. John McEntee from the Mighty Incantation. What is your final closing statement tonight?
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Anyone knows me, it's going to be Scream Bloody Gore. I mean, it just is, the first album, it hit me like a ton of bricks. To me, it's every song on that album, it just brings back memories, of my youth, and that's what's really great about music. And yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a phenomenal album. You don't even know what to say about it. I mean, at that time when it came out, it was just like, it was just something different than all the other, stuff I was listening to. I mean, I was into a lot of, aggressive thrash stuff and early pseudo death metal kind of stuff. But Scream Bloody Gore really just like, took it to that next level. I mean, I love the insanity of Chris Reeford's drum playing. It just fits with that album. It just has that, it just has that pissed off vibe to it. And, I was a pissed off kid. So, I mean, it was perfect of an album. I think all eras of Death are super important. And it's just amazing because generation wise, it just kind of matters, I think, where people hear this stuff and when they get into it, which is like their favorite or which one, what means the most to them and stuff like that. And it's a really phenomenal band that every album I think really is, a lot of people really like that one as their favorite. So it's really, really awesome. I mean, I'm just an old school guy. So of course, like I said, Gore's mine. Yeah, I'm elitist asshole,
I'm gonna agree with John with what he just said, because I've said that a bunch. Like, I feel like it depends when you were first introduced to Death.
Yeah,
because it's a band that has definitely had all different.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of younger musicians that got into it maybe on Human or Individual Thought Patterns and listen back to it and don't quite get Scream Bloody Gore or Leprosy or whatever, So it just depends when you get into it. But the fact that every style of death, almost every album created like a whole subgenre of death metal. It's just absolutely insane. And I do have a funny story. I mean, Gene Hoglan's here, so it reminded me. We opened up for you guys at the Roxy Theater. Yeah, it was 94, I think it was. And you guys were great, all super cool. And Paul Babikian was doing sound, I think, and tour managing for you guys.
Oh.
And it was, you know, we went over like a lead pipe. I mean, people just weren't into it because we were just playing like the heaviest, you know, kind of old school death metal sound or whatever. I think we didn't even release our second album, but we were playing like mostly second album stuff, which is probably our most obscure and dark, you know, and the crowd was just kind of like, do you guys even know how to play your instruments or whatever, you know? But it was fun, you know, we had a good time. Anyway, our roadie, we gave him a bunch of stickers to hand out to the crowd.
Stickered the trailer and Uncle Danny. And,
yeah, you remember that. Yeah.
Dean remembers everything. So
absolutely.
Oh, dude, I was so freaking pissed, dude. I gave it to him to hand out to the crowd, you know, or just hand out to maybe the bands or something. He was all drunk and he thought it was a good idea to put it all around your trailer. I didn't even think he put it like on the bus, like right when you like walk in, you like put like an incantation sticker. And I was just like,
oh God.
And then Paul Babikian runs out to me and tells me like, dude, we gotta talk. And I'm like, what, dude? What's up? And he's like, and he told me what happened. And I was just like, no. I was like, no, dude. And then it just got crazy. I can't remember, but your roadies were fucking pissed and ready to beat the shit out of us. And we had to basically run out of there. And our roadie, we were all pissed off because he's all drunk. So he goes in our van and pulls out a bat and she's gonna try to fight some of your roadies. And he ended up smashing our windshield with trying to get it out of our van. He cracked the windshield on the driver, not the passenger side. So we had to drive home. Like we were just like pulling him in there, like, you know, don't fucking fight or whatever, you know, like, cause we felt like assholes. I mean, first of all, I'm good friends with Paul Babikian because he used to be my guitar tech when I was playing in Revenant and stuff. So it's like I knew that the dude forever, and I was like, I felt like the biggest douchebag. But we kind of went home with our tail between our legs like assholes, you know, like fuck, we really made a dick out of ourselves at the show. And I remember the next day, like getting a call from our record company Relapse saying like, we got a call from Death. You know, they're saying like if they can't get these stickers off their bus and trailer, you know, you're gonna have a hefty bill of, you know, repainting this stuff. Wow. And I was just like, oh man, dude. So
I bet Chuck was stewing, man.
And it was just brutal because you guys were all super cool to us. You know, we're like all, you know, I just remember just kind of hanging out, talking and stuff. I think the Suffo guys were there. We're all just kind of bullshitting and having a good time. And then, yeah, our fucking, you know, roadie, our drunken roadie just decides to, you know, be a cool, like, you know, decorating the death bus with some incant stickers. I mean,
it happens, man. Ain't birthday, man. Totally. Yeah. Nobody else remembers this. I guarantee you that.
That's an awesome little story, John.
Yeah, trust me, dude. I was shitting, dude, after he did that. You know, I was like, we're gonna get our asses beat, and it's like we deserve it, you know. You know, and then the next day, like I said, I was like, you know, I thought we were gonna have a huge bill. I guess you guys were able to take it off or whatever. I never heard back. But it was funny because I even talked to Babikian on the cruise last year, and he totally forgot about it. And I was like, oh man, you were furious, you know. But anyway, yeah. So that's my story. And besides that, just yeah, I mean, Death, you know, the time it's around, it made a huge impact on a lot of people, and everyone that's played in the band should definitely be proud of making that kind of impact, because I know for myself, I wouldn't be still playing music. I've been doing my band for 30 years now, and I wouldn't be doing it the same way if it wasn't for Death. So I you know, I appreciate everybody's you know, contribution to that band. It meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to the history of death metal. It just wouldn't be the same in any genre. I mean, you could get like a band like Decapitated that's influenced by, you know, later Death that might not be doing that stuff, you know, or whatever.
Well, I mean, Epica even covers Crystal Mountain live. Like that's how vast.
Epica, I didn't know that.
Epica, like I've seen them. They break it out, and like that's how vast like it goes across like the genres of like metal.
There's not many death metal bands that are that like, you know, can go influence that many bands from all different styles. There's not many death metal bands that could do that. I mean, there's bands that influence you, but not influence like, you know,
so Epica's not going to cover Hammer Smash Face? That'd be perfect.
Cool. Well, thanks, John. That was awesome.
Yeah,
Chase.
sorry, Gene. I apologize.
No, shit, man. That's all
You're
good.
gonna get a bill in the mail.
You know, if Testament ever crosses paths with Incantation again, you'll remember to get some of those Testament decals and put them all over John's.
There you go.
And I'll text you John's address later.
Yeah,
There you
send
go,
me
man.
Bill.
Pretty fun. No, man, shoot, I remember Revenant opening for Dark Angel in New Rochelle. Where was that?
Yeah. That's
89, I remember that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That Streets.
Dark
yeah.
Angel is one of my favorites too. Yeah, fuck.
And I remember meeting you, Gene, the first time. I mean, seeing you with Dark Angel, but you used to come around to my store with the Primeval crew.
I remember that, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. And last time I ran into you, you were doing double duty on the Slayer tour. You were in Testament, of course, and you were filling in for on Anthrax on the drums at the PNC.
That's right.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Always great to see you. So, Chase, I guess we're up to you for your final statements tonight. And Gatecreeper's got some stuff going on too, so maybe you can fill us in on that at the end. And
so my favorite record is Leprosy. I think that it's one of my it's top 3 or top 5 death metal albums of all time, just not even in the context of death. Just as a death metal album, I think it's like exactly what I want to hear, where it's like a kind of more stripped down meat and potatoes kind of simplistic parts, but the part that it catches me the most and is what I look for, or what I try to do with writing my own death metal songs or whatever, is to have hooks in death metal. You know, like it's not always easy to take a style that's so brutal and extreme, but still somehow make it catchy without losing, the brutality of it. And I think that the songs on Leprosy really nail that. Like there's vocal hooks. Like there's not there's guitar hooks. But the vocal hooks are the things that like really like Pull the Plug or Born Dead or whatever. Like you can sing along to those songs, which is not a common thing for death metal. It's at least as death metal went on to be even more extreme or whatever it is. So Leprosy is my favorite. And for the closing statements, Gatecreeper, we just put out a new record.
Cool.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah.
Gatecreeper fan. Absolutely.
Check it out. I wish Terry was here. Terry's the one that invited me.
Terry Terry was like, can I invite you? And I was like, yes, of course.
It's called Unexpected Reality on Closed Casket.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And one thing that I wanted to mention that I think is funny, when the Death by Metal documentary came out, my dad, who is not into heavy music at all, but my dad has always, shared a love of music, and especially like band documentaries or anything like that. Like we would go see him in the theater together, or he would recommend him to me. But he watched Death by Metal and he was really like interested in it, which I thought was really surprising. But he started texting me about like, I know that you like this band. Like, I thought this was cool about it. Like, even like music aside, he probably didn't understand or even like the music, but I thought it was pretty funny to be texting my dad about death for a while.
That's awesome.
Yeah, excellent.
Cool.
One thing I forgot to mention too is that I did a project earlier in the year for the Metal Against Coronavirus. I have like kind of like a whole bunch of different musicians for different bands playing on songs. It's not songs we wrote necessarily. I just did some vocals on it. And so if you get a chance, you can just check it out just to help support, getting vaccines out to different, people try to get the world back on track so we can get out there playing metal and stuff. But I just, try to do something good that, everyone kind of agree with is that you just want to get past this. So it's Metal Against Metal Against Coronavirus, and the song that I did is the first line. It's called, and you can get it like on Bandcamp for like $1 or something like that, and it just something positive you could do, you know, to try to help things out. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want I don't want to forget, because they would have killed me if I would have not said nothing.
Positivity and charities.
You didn't interrupt. You raised your hand first. So
Yeah.
you raised
Like,
your hand.
please,
That's like in
yeah.
school. Yeah. School.
I don't want like this, maybe.
Cool. So, yeah, thanks for coming on, Chase. You're always welcome to come on the show. Any of you guys are always welcome. Like every week we do a different subject, whether it's death metal or traditional metal. Next week we're doing Ronnie James Dio. We got Vinny Appice and Andrew Freeman from Last in Line, and a couple of our regulars. And everybody's always welcome. And we're always working on something new. And so thanks. I'd love to even talk to you about Gatecreeper one week if you'd like to. So
yeah,
cool.
sure.
Munsey, Ricci, you are our center square right now. You're the center square like Paul Lynde on the Hollywood Square.
Wow. I like being the center square. That's kind of pretty cool. I'm going to say probably my favorite Death album would be Symbolic. And reason being is that, I mean, it's like one of the last records he did. But if you stop and you look at it, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, as an artist, he progressed and he matured as an artist. And I guess, you know, it's kind of hard from people on the outside looking in. They always say, oh, the first record was the best, or the second album was the best. You know, they never really give the artist credit, because no artist really stays the same and stays in a bubble. They always grow to, you know, to something new. And I just thought that this record, probably when it came to the riffs and it came to like all the chops that were on it, I just thought it was like the best produced record. I thought it had the best songs on it. And I think it really represented really what Chuck was all about. And, you know, I mean, from like a lot of people, the artists themselves will say, you know, they'll look at it and say, well, they put their heart and soul into something, and people will go back to the artist and say, well, I think this record was better. It's like, well, they don't really get it, because you kind of have to put yourself in the shoes of the band and see what the band was feeling when they wrote that record. And at least to me, when I sit back and I listen to it, I just think that Symbolic is probably their best record, and it's my favorite record.
Ditto. Me and you both got that at #1, Munsey.
Yeah, dude. Well, brilliant minds think alike. We just need to go find the bar stool at the pub and drink.
Well, we're drinking on Zoom right now. I guess. Cheers.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
All right. Cool. Thanks for coming on tonight, Munsey, and you're always welcome. Join us
Thanks for
anytime.
having me, brother.
Matt, your final statements and anything you want to add, brother.
Okay, so first, I guess I'll do my favorite album. My favorite album is Scream Bloody Gore, because when I was 12 to like 16, really, all I really cared about was, is it faster than whatever band I just heard? Is it faster than, is Creator faster than Slayer? Is Death faster than Creator? So on and so forth. And is it more horrible? I bought the album. I'd never heard of the band. I just saw the tape and I was like, the band's just called Death? What the fuck? That's awesome. And as soon as I saw it had a song called Regurgitated Guts, I was like, I'm buying it. That's it. That's my allowance this week. And I heard it and I was just like, what did I just spend my allowance on? Like, I don't even know what's happening. And I kind of put it away for like a month or two. And then I ended up hearing Leprosy, like I said before. And then I went back to Scream Bloody Gore and it just clicked. And I just love how rude and horrible it is in all the best ways. You know, it's very completely unpolished, just two guys smoking weed in a warehouse, like going balls out and just trying to make the heaviest, grossest record they could. And they succeeded. And as far as my final thought or whatever, I just want to share a couple like quick anecdotes. The first show I ever went to was in April '89. It was Anthrax, Exodus, and Halloween. I was 13. Yeah, I was 13 at the time, and I got this flyer outside. Oops, it's upside down. I got this flyer outside the show, which I colored in colored pencil because I was in 8th grade. And I remember asking my parents if I could go to this show, and they looked at this flyer and they're like, absolutely fucking not. Are you out of your mind? But I've held on to this flyer now since 1980.
I love that too. Sorry, Matt. Did you see what he just put up? What Steven
What's that?
just put up?
Oh, me?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Horns up.
it all sort of came full circle many years later when the first Death to All tour happened, and Stefan from Obscura couldn't get a visa, and so there was like 9 days or something before the tour started, and I got an email like, would you be able to do it? And I was like, I should say yes, but I have no idea, maybe. And so I was trying to learn I was trying to learn songs, you know, like Zero Tolerance and stuff that I hadn't grown up playing, you know, because I was playing all the early stuff when I was like 13. And it was super intimidating. And I'm go up to the rehearsals and I'm sitting there jamming with Gene and with Steve from Sadis, who, you know, growing up, all three of these bands were just like it, you know. And so I'm sitting there like trying to play these songs that I've just learned with some of like my heroes. And I remember, I think it was Zero Tolerance, I can't remember. And we were playing and I thought the tempo was kind of dragging. And I just had this moment of like deep-seated anxiety. And I was like, how do I tell Gene Hoglan that the tempo was kind of dragging? Like, should I say something? And I just felt like going, Mr. Hoglan, sir, I'm terribly sorry, guy that played on Darkness Descends. But, and I remember I was just like, did that feel a little slow? And Gene, of course, being an incredibly sweet guy, was like, yeah, you know, I'm kind of just loosening up. It was kind of dragging, man. We'll pick it up next time we go through it. And I just felt like this huge weight was lifted off me, this giant sigh of relief, like, whew, okay, like this is going to be all right. Like everybody here is super cool. I was really welcoming, and it ended up just being a great time, especially getting to spend more time with so many guys that were in one of my favorite bands. It was really, you know, it meant a lot to me just to sort of be a fly on the wall, even for some of the conversations I was hearing about the history of death and the history of metal and their personal experiences. As a fan, I mean, it was like the ultimate like rock and roll fantasy camp. And, you know, you get to go up in front of like 800 people and play the philosopher, and people are losing their fucking minds. So it was a great 2 weeks, man.
Well, Matt, I got to tell you, you did a fantastic job, brother. You did, and I remember you explaining to me one time that exact thing. You're like, I grew up with the, you know, Scream Bloody Gore and the Leprosy, and you know, I'm the oldest school, and for me to come in and be doing, you know, the techier side of death, I thought you did a fantastic job, man.
Oh,
you
well,
know,
thank you.
Coming
Thanks.
in, especially that late notice that you did. It wasn't like you had months to prepare. You showed up, and you showed up, brother. So thank you very much, man.
Well,
absolutely. You did a
you know,
great
when
job. Now, I
you're
remember
playing with great players,
you know,
shine more, you know.
Yeah, man, shooting the shiz about metal all night, you know, that was awesome. I
Cheers,
remember
man.
those.
Thanks.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Cool, man. That's awesome. All
All
righty.
the stories.
Yeah, that's why I love Thursday nights, Robin. We have so much fun talking, sitting around
Oh my
talking
God, all the
about
stories.
metal, just like Gene was talking, you know, so bringing people together. Shaun, I guess you're up next, brother.
Hey, so first I'll start off with my favorite Death album, okay? So I would probably say Leprosy is definitely my number one album. And for so many reasons, I thought it was the perfect progression from Scream Bloody Gore. That it still had all the DNA from that album, but just such a huge leap in production, obviously. And the hooks, like Chase was saying, Pull the Plug is like, that to me is like one of the catchiest, best death metal songs ever written. And I thought that, you know, with the addition of Rick, the Massacre guys, Rick, Bill, and Terry on that album, I think it added some new energy to the band, especially live. And I thought that the artwork was amazing. Like when I saw the cover of the album, I was like, oh, dude, like Chuck, I think he faxed me it, actually, like the sketch. Dude, wait till you see this, bro. And it was so rad.
Your imitation is phenomenal. Like
I love it.
well, then that brings me to a funny story. Is one time Death was flown in. I think it was Milwaukee Metal Fest or a couple shows, because my old band before Jesus was born with Syndrome, we did like
was it the Milwaukee Metal Fest '98 one?
Yeah,
like
we did.
last
Syndrome
one?
we did some shows with them.
Yeah.
For right when Scream was out, I think, and Into the Halls of Extermination for Syndrome was out. But
Such a good day.
I think they got flown into Milwaukee, and then they had like a handful of dates in the area. And Jack Koshik, who was the promoter, everyone knows from Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Jack at the time was quote unquote Death's manager for that month, and Jack put them in his basement. And I'll never forget, I was at my parents' house in the dead of winter and getting the phone call from Chuck, and he had Terry, Rick, and Bill with him. I hadn't met them yet, so this is before we did dates. So this right before Leprosy was recorded, and Scream Bloody Gore was out. And Chuck called me. He's like, "Dude, Shaun, you gotta come get us. He's got us in the basement. It's cold, bro. Freezing down here." So I get in my mom's Volvo in North Shore Highland Park, and Milwaukee's 45 minutes from my parents' house at the time. So I head up there, pick all them up, get them all in my car, and then we go back to my parents' house, and they stay there for like 2 or 3 days until we sorted everything out. And it's kind of a blur now. I can't remember how they left, or they got a vehicle, or if they all flew home. It's kind of crazy. But we stayed in my basement, which was like the Syndrome practice spot in my parents' basement, and we just watched like nonstop metal videos and horror movies. And I remember I had a bootleg of the Megadeth with Kerry King before Peace Sells came out, and they were playing all those songs on the live set. Me and Chuck just watching it and like analyzing the riffs and like geeking out on Mustaine's playing, just be like, dude, he blows Metallica away, bro, and just stuff like that. But like I had such great memories, especially of picking up Chuck cold in Jack Koshik's basement like it was a torture chamber.
That's hilarious. I'm sorry, that's hilarious. I can't even.
Oh, it was so
I
funny.
love it.
And like the best souvenirs from Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, well, the best was like him meeting my parents, and he was so. I mean, Chuck was polite, He was not, he wasn't like bringing Paul Speckman to my house, right? But it was he was so well, he was so nice, and I'm like, Mom, this is my friend from Florida, can they stay here for the night? They're like, absolutely. And they made him breakfast, and Chuck's like, oh, thanks, Mrs. Glass, and it was so rad, like having Chuck and my parents. I was like,
impression's amazing. It's like I can't.
Yeah. Dude, when he would call, like my dad, like, Shaun, Chuck's on the phone. I'm like, hold on, buddy, No, but it was so funny to when I think about it now, like I lived in a pretty snobby North Shore area where I grew up in, and not many kids were metal, and I was like the lonely outcast long-haired death metal kid when all the other kids were like into the Bulls and sports. And like it was funny, like now some of my friends like that grew up like, that's crazy, you had Death stay at your house. And I'm like, yeah, none of you even listened to them then. They didn't know Scream Bloody Gore, but it was cool. And it's kind of like, that's why I think Leprosy is so special, because I had like the rehearsal tapes of the pre-pro before Leprosy was recorded. And I remember hearing Pull the Plug before the album was tracked. And I was like, dude, that's the song. And I think I wore that tape out in my mom's car, But Leprosy to me just had the perfect brutality. And like I said earlier, like I liked Rick's Kerry King leads. I thought it complemented Chuck's melodic leads. And I think that's kind of was something that was lost later on. I love the yin and yang of those two solos. And as much as Rick and Chuck never really got on eye to eye, but I thought that Rick did add a cool element to the band. And, and Bill's drumming was great on Leprosy. I thought he killed it. I thought he played great. He was on the beat.
I agree.
And the band was tight as hell. He wasn't the most fancy drummer with tons of crazy rolls, but what he did fit the songs.
I agree totally, man. Billy was great on Leprosy, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. And even when that production came out, that was next level. When people
That
heard that album, that
Yeah,
was
man.
like, wow, this
Very
is a polished, produced death metal album
Absolutely.
with
Probably
striking
the
album
first.
cover art. You know, it was on.
There
You know,
wasn't a
even
death
though-
metal album that sounded like that.
Exactly. And I remember I was like, oh, he touched the logo up. That's when he started cleaning up the logo every album, remember? And I was like, dude, what happened to
Yeah.
this? I think the cobwebs went away or something, or the cross wasn't as inverted, you know. I was like, dude, don't change the logo. It's perfect. I always hated when he changed the logo, even near the end,
Me
like,
too.
you know, Sound of
Yeah,
Perseverance, the logo. I was like, what happened? It's all gone. You know?
Yeah, turn into a plus, I think, right?
Right.
Much.
That's probably one of the reasons also, like, Sound of Perseverance for me is my least favorite album is the vocals. When Chuck he went so high, he sounded like Sadist. I was like, what happened? Like, why did you all of a sudden go like a whole step up vocally? You know, I grew to like Sound of Perseverance, but to me, that's always my least favorite.
The vocal performance, yeah, definitely is the downfall of Sound of Perseverance. I
Yeah.
like the album. I think it's good. I love, like I said, I love Richard Christie's playing.
Yeah,
It's actually really good progressive album, but the vocals are just too high for my.
yeah, he sounded like Sadist.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like Death. I mean, I love
He sounded like
Sadist,
Chuck
but-
tuned up a whole step.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but yeah, Richard was great. But to me, I always liked, you know, Shaun, Gene, and Bill, and of course Chris Ryford. You know, they're all like those are to me.
They're all great.
Yeah, definitely. But Leprosy, I still think is like that. If I was gonna play someone a death metal album, be like, you want to hear death? I would put Leprosy on first.
Cool. Awesome. Yes. I'm so glad you came on tonight. You have some great
Support
stories.
music, not rumors.
I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah.
So is it? So cool.
I do miss Chuck. It sucks because when I was doing Soil, we played Orlando a lot. That was like our hot market we had a huge radio hit in Orlando first before everything happened. In like 2001, this is right when Chuck was sick. And I remember like playing House of Blues and like, you know, we didn't have as much technology. You know, we didn't have social media. I mean, I had a cell phone. I don't know how primitive it was then, but I always wanted to reach out to Chuck and like kind of reconnect after our falling out. And I was like, always, every time I played Orlando, I was like, God, if I could only go to his house in Altamont Springs again and just, you know, knock on the door and, hey, dude, like, I always wanted to reconnect, and it sucks. You know, I never got to reconnect with him. It hurts.
Aw.
Yes, that sucks. Cool. Well, anyhow, thanks, Shaun. That was some great stories and
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Robin.
great memories.
Thanks for joining.
And Daniel, what's your final
Yeah.
statements? And it's been great to have you on the show for the first time on
Well,
Rock
thank you.
Fantasy Files
Appreciate
too. Awesome.
Appreciate it. So my favorite album, it's Human for sure. There's a couple of reasons for that. You know, I'm a little bit younger, so by the time the actual album was released, I was probably too young. I was already into metal, but not into death metal. Fast forward a couple of years later, probably like mid 90s, I'm guessing. I was already into death metal, and a friend of mine asked me if I like death, and I remember at the time I've heard a little bit of Scream, Blood, and Gore and Leprosy, so I was into it. But he let me borrow an original tape of Human, and when I play that, as soon as I play that tape, the first song, I was just like, what the fuck? So, you know, like I grew up, my dad loves music, you know, rock, blues, a lot of jazz. So I grew up listening to a lot of jazz. And when I heard that album and the way they were, of course, it's not like full-blown jazz, but they definitely had that vibe. Like I couldn't understand how a death metal band could like blend those two worlds together. I didn't think it was possible. I thought at the time, I thought that was like against the rules of death metal. But it just blew me away. I mean, I've always been a speed freak, and like Gene said earlier, Shaun's drumming is so brutally like amazing and groundbreaking for everybody. You know, those double kicks, you know, his cymbal work, everything just incredibly uh, perfectly glued with Chuck's riffs. When they started doing like polyrhythms and odd measures, you know, 7/4s and 3/4s and you know, all those like odd measures. I was just like blown away. I couldn't at the time. I never heard any other band, metal band or like death metal for that matter, play that style of music. So definitely that was groundbreaking for me. Opened my mind as a musician and guitar player too. You know, like I feel like Chuck's solos. I think coming from playing with James Murphy for a couple of years, he probably learned a thing or two. So his solos are a lot more musical. And you know, obviously we had Shaun and Steve playing bass. I mean, the whole album is just a masterpiece. There's not a bad note on that album at all. Even Paul's, he only has like 2 solos on the album, but even those solos are like perfectly like matched together. Like it's just amazing album. It really changed, you know, like to me, for me, for as a closing statement, to me that album, it is also one of my favorites because it's like the perfect combination of the old school death and what Chuck had in mind for his progressive musical future. So to me, I know, I think it was John that mentioned, or it was Terry that mentioned he has like 3 phases of death, like demos, the first 3 albums and the rest. Well, to me, like I put the dividing line on Human because definitely that's like it's like splitting the atom right there, you know, like it was
I agree with
so,
that
so groundbreaking, like it's like a new chapter musically, not only for death but like for, you know, as Gene was saying, like how influential that album is. You know, Shaun's playing and you know the whole record in general, and I guess to close, you know, which some of you already talked about, that I feel like Chuck is one of those um, musical geniuses that, you know, very few metal bands are able to like come out with albums, you know, each album different from the other, but they all are such like high quality, regardless if they're your favorite or not, or whatever your perception is of Chuck or Death or whatever, or lineup changes. If you just focus on the music, like each album from Scream Bloody Gore to Sound of Perseverance, they're each of them are so different sonically, musically, like songwriting wise, lyrically, and so, you know, Chuck and everybody that he got to play on those albums, I mean, obviously everybody had a part on that, so it's really amazing. And of course, you know, very influential to me, and I'm sure, you know, to all of you and, you know, thousands of people. So I guess I raise my glass to Chuck and everybody that played on those albums. Eugene, Terry, you know, thanks for the music. Like, you know,
Are you the man of war,
change
Shaun?
my life. So, you know,
Harvey with the hail and kill.
humanity is for me. So there you go.
Thank you,
Well,
Dan.
Matt,
Oh man.
I
Are
feel
you
the
guys
same.
gonna start comparing man of war tattoos now? No.
Yeah.
Man of War.
Also,
We
I
have
was
to do
was
it. Oh,
wearing
we
my
have to do
small
a man
shorts
of-
for Terry, but
Ah.
Terry left. I had my
Love
tiny
Man of
shorts.
War.
Hey,
When are we doing the Man of War episode? A couple weeks?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
in.
you
down.
Invite me on
Dan
that.
and
Yeah.
Matt
down for that. Totally down for that.
All right,
Always
that'll
time to
be
hail,
on, that's
brother.
on the drawing board. I kind of felt that way with Human too, bringing in Shaun, and they gave that kind of like progressive, where the start of the progressive started, that influences. Of course, I got to see Cynic on the Focus tour, opening up for Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah.
as Mark.
Was Robin there?
Yeah, kinda.
Were you there?
Cannibal,
I didn't
Cannibal
know you
Corpse,
at
Cynic,
them.
and Sinister.
Yeah, I remember the oak.
Too, yeah, I was at like an old bowling alley or something, Asbury Lanes or something.
Oh, the Fast Lane.
Maybe it was a fast
Fast Lane in
I
Asbury
was
Park,
blown away
or-
by Cynic. They had a female vocalist on
Yeah.
that tour.
Dana Cosley from
Oh,
my
man.
old band.
She was
Oh,
she
yeah.
was
Yeah,
tearing that
Dana
up.
sang in my old band and then joined Cynic as the growler, and Paul
Yeah.
sang the nice vocals.
Nice.
The robot.
Yeah.
So
I thought Sinister was awesome on that album.
Yeah, and Sinister was on it. Yep.
okay.
Just cross the sticks.
So I guess
Diabolical.
Oh, it was diabolical.
That
so we're
album
gonna
ruled.
get our final closing statement from the master of the drum kit, Gene
From
Hoglan.
Patio.
Wrap up, Genio.
Wrap us up. You get to say whatever you want to end the show tonight, buddy.
Send us home.
Well, shoot, man, I got to say that, I suppose that, death, I was very fortunate to be a part of a very historical band, and just the amount of influence that it appears that death has had over the years, like Shaun was saying earlier, there's quite a number of genres that were created by Chuck and the men.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool to be a part of any of that. And just seeing the amount of love that has poured out towards death and towards the memory of Chuck, which we've still got the Death to All thing going, which is just a really fun tribute to Chuck. It's Stevie D, Mr. Bobby Coble, Mr. Max Phelps, and myself, and we have a great time doing it because it's just a sweet little family of dudes that we like playing together and getting to play some kick-ass music, Chuck's music. And that was kind of the entire thing with the entire Death to All. The creation of it was, it's unfortunate, of course, that we don't have Chuck with us anymore, but if we can do something about keeping his music in front of people, it is very viable music. It is very, it is an important band, whether, regardless of our, ties to it. But if we can do something to help keep Chuck's music in front of people, we're going to take it. There's so many times at Death to All shows that you got, the front row, and Matt, you may remember some of these, like front row lined up with big, scary, brutal metal dudes that have tears running down their face, and they're yelling out, "Thank you for doing this." It's bringing back such
Awesome.
good memories for people, and bringing out such a good vibe on everybody. It's one big family of Death fans, young, old, all of that. And, it was, it is a very fortunate period in my career that I got to be a part of it, and, creating Stevie D and I were friends since 1987 kind of thing, but that brotherhood that Stevie D and I have created through initially playing together with Death, we still have that magic chemistry. We're fortunate that we get to play in Testament and Death to All kind of things together. Involve Stevie D in just about everything I do. But, the fact that we get to bring Chuck's music in front of people and let everybody have their own experience that night. We all have our own experiences every night with the music, but everybody at the show that gets to take themselves back to that first time they heard Death, or the first Death show they went to, or getting to meet Chuck at some point, you know, that kind of thing, you know, that it's, you know, you get to bring out some really good vibes in people. And that's one thing I'm always about, you know, so I'm very fortunate, you know, and
Yeah.
they haven't put out a dud record. Like I said, you know, Spiritual Healing ain't my favorite, but everything else is, you know, God, you know, it's, you just saw the evolution of, in some ways, of metal, you know, through Death, you know, starting off savage death metal, and then some tech death metal, and then some, you know, the melodic death metal. Quite a number of genres Chuck was involved with, man. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
I have to agree.
Awesome.
There has not been one dud, even with all the changes that they went through. That, like, every album, it's whether you like where it went or not, or what it was before. That, like, every album is
good.
Great.
That's
like there's not many bands you can say that about. Like, there's not been like really a dud.
Yeah, I think with that many different members also, right?
Yeah, like there's
Well, it does all relate to, you know, it was his vision. He's the singer, guitar player, so it was Chuck's riffs and voice that always was progressing, and then bringing in the other elements of new members all the time helped him always develop and progress, you know.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is like a broad question, because I think about this sometime. We're coming up on I can't do math right now, but what, 20 years basically almost since he's passed, like at the end of the year, this year.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like where would, like, his whole career was this amount of time. So there's been this amount of time since he's passed. Where do you think that progression would have went?
I think he would have came back to it. I think Control Denied would have came out and done what it did. And I think, yeah, you know, that sounded pretty Floridian. Done what it did. So I think that would have lasted a few years. And then I think he would have seen how much more of Death was in demand during that tour cycle, that he probably would wrap his head back around it. And I think financially he would have been in a larger demand. I think Death would have been a lot more viable.
Yeah, because think like for like really the time span of like the albums, it wasn't that vast of a time with all those changes, and now it's been so long. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I think he would be, and I think musically, he would probably still be more in the individual Sound of Perseverance riffing style. I think that's probably where he would be more than. I don't think he would go back and write Scream Bloody Gore Part 2.
I don't. I think I agree with you on that. I don't see that, because it was like, oh, it's Fuge.
Dude, I'm not writing a song about a zombie. I'm 50.
You know,
that's like, do you think that too? Like being like that last part of that. Do you think that in that aspect, where it would have went in that 20-year time span from where it was?
I think he'd be headlining a lot of big festivals if he was alive right now. I think if he took that break, the value would be so much more. If you know, like after Control Denied, if he took a little hiatus and then regrouped Death a few years later, because there was big offers from big festivals pre-pandemic, I think that Death would have a very high ranking, and I think Death would be even bigger than they actually ever were.
Yeah, I'm just like, I think about that because it's been so long, and I just wonder where.
I mean, of course, that's a great thing to think about. I mean, with all the greats, like we talk about Randy Rhoads, we talk about Jimi Hendrix, and what would they have done in their careers if their lives weren't cut so short?
Like everything was his, like, and how everything progressed by, like, I just wonder where that would have like I can't imagine, you know.
Maybe Gene would probably be playing with him. We don't know.
I hope so.
I picture spacesuits.
Spacesuits.
Well, I'm joking.
Hey, maybe Chuck would have been in Testament now too.
There you go.
I don't think.
I don't know about that.
Well, I don't know. God knows, right?
Well, I think part of the fascination with Death and the reason why people love, you know, why people go see DTA and get tears in their eyes, and why people are even interested in the tribute band that Dan and Robin and I do, is because the story ended in the middle, you know, and you'll never know because everybody was very invested in the story. You know, it's like, imagine if Game of Thrones ended at season 3, like people would be like, fuck, you know? And that's just, again, like you said, with Hendrix or Randy Rhoads or Cliff Burton, any of these guys, and Chuck absolutely deserves to be in the same echelon as all those dudes. You know, that's the tragic, but also romantic part of the legacy that, you know, will never go away and will never die. And people will always be interested in it because, you know, who knows? Maybe he would have put out a dud record. Maybe he was out of shit. Probably not. But we'll never know. And that's why, or that's one of the things that keeps the mystique about the band and really fascinates people. You know, people love lots of bands that have been going on for a long time, you know, whether it's Testament or Cannibal Corpse or whatever.
Iraq's.
Incantation. But, you know, but death, we'll never know. And, you know, that's the saddest part of the story for the people that didn't know Chuck personally, you know. And I think that's one of the great things about DTA too, is it's almost like, if you're just a Death fan, it's almost like you're going to a memorial for Chuck, like a celebration of life ceremony for this guy that maybe you didn't know personally, but you did. You know, you spent so much time with his records that he's a part of your life as a fan. And yeah, so we'll never know what it was. It is interesting to speculate, or what it would have been rather, but it is interesting to speculate. And obviously, you know, it's a testament to the importance of the band for so many people in so many corners of the metal scene, you know?
Yeah, I thought the Death to All thing was, at first when it was happening, I was like, that's kind of strange, like Death without Chuck, like how can that even be? But then I started to really realize that, you know, for a whole generation, I mean, it's been so long now since Chuck has been gone and not playing, and how good it is to keep that stuff in circulation, to get people to know about it, and to start other people, you know, on this death metal road from hearing, you know, the death stuff. I mean, keeping it in mind is important.
It's a gateway band for sure.
Yeah, and I didn't. I mean, I thought about it first. To me, it just seemed weird because I'm like, well, you know, we all know Chuck is death, so it's kind of weird. But it's actually, you know, it's a really good thing, and I think it's, you know, nice the way it's done, you know, in his honor. I think it's a beautiful thing. I mean, as a musician, I would want to have somebody keep the legacy going if it was worth it that much. I'm sure Chuck would be extremely happy to know that after his passing that, you know, people could still hear his music live and, you know, hear it in the most authentic way it could possibly be. I mean, that's a great memorial to him, you know, it really is.
Yes, it is. Well, I guess that's a wrap for the night, and I want to really thank everybody that came on tonight.
Thank you.
We've had a lot of great bands represented tonight. Everything from new guys on the blog like Gatecreeper to Daniel, that's in Gruesome and Possessed. Of course, the mighty Gene Hoglan.
He's been in a couple bands.
I've seen it.
Yeah, Dark Angel and currently, like I said, the New Testament is great. And Matt and Shaun and Rum and Munsey from Skateboard Marketing. Please, if you like tonight's show, please hit subscribe. We're going to do more stuff. We talked about Manowar. I'm going to be interviewing The Crown tomorrow. Cool. They got a new album coming out on Metal Blade, and I'm going to do something with them tomorrow afternoon, and that'll be going up over the weekend. And next week, we're going to be talking about Kiss, and we're going to be talking about Dio in upcoming episodes. So,
cool.
Anybody who wants
Thanks
to
for having me.
Join us, rock and roll. Thanks for watching.
Everybody stay healthy.
Check out rockfantasy.com if you want to buy some records, and go to these guys' websites. Support these bands while they can't tour. Buy some shirts, do something, you know. Buy some rock shirts, do something to support these bands while we're in this freaking crappy, horrible situation.
Right on.
2021.